Welcome to Tesseract, where a dangerous cube of alien technology has descended upon the Earth, and we're the science team that's going to try to contain it. Throughout this game, we're going to be disassembling the Tesseract by taking dice off of the top layer of it and adding them into our labs, and we're going to try to study and contain the various elements in the cube into our containment chamber here. But all the while, the cube is losing stability, and we'll have to remove other dice to roll into this primed area here. The more dice in the primed area, the higher likelihood of breach. Breach is how we lose the game. So on each player's turn, they're allowed to take 3 actions, and one of the most important of those actions is to start removing dice from the Tesseract and adding them into their labs. The main rule with this is that when you remove a die, you're going to put it in your lab with the same face showing face up, and you're only allowed to take dice that have at least 3 surfaces showing. So I can't take things out of the center, I can't even take things out of this top edge here, it would have to be something on a corner. So I'm going to take this blue 4, and you can tell what number a die is by the number of pips on it. They kind of work like normal dice, but with cool alien symbols on them. And what I'm working toward is getting a set of dice into my lab that I'll be able to use to start containing those dice. If you have at least 3 dice in a set or a run, meaning they're all the same number or they're all consecutive numbers, and they're all either the same color or they're all different colors, then you can contain one of those dice. So for instance, I could also take a purple 5 off the top of my Tesseract here and add that to my lab for my second action. And one of my other actions, which is very handy, is called Adjust, which means I can take any die that's in my lab or in this primed area here, and I can adjust its number by 1. So this 5 I can turn into a 4. Now that was my third action for the turn, but you can see here now I have a set of 4s, there are 3 4s here, and they're all different colors, which means this is a containable set. On my next turn, I'd be able to take the Contain action. Let's just take a look at what that would look like. When I choose the Contain action, I'm going to choose a die in a valid set, and I'm going to add it into this containment board here. I'm going to choose this purple 4 for a very specific reason. So a couple of things happen when you contain. We add this to the board. Next, we look at the primed area, because if there are any dice in the primed area that perfectly match the die that I just contained, a purple 4, we get to destroy that die out of the primed area, which is great. And we do just happen to have a purple 4, so I destroy that die. And last, we make a choice about the dice remaining in the set that we contained from. We can leave them as they are, there's a couple of 4s here already, ready to add another 4 to and keep containing. Or I can roll all the remaining dice, and those are going to come up as random values in my lab. But when I choose to make that random roll, I get one of these research cards out of the deck. These are really great one-time use free actions that'll be available to me until I use it. There's a lot of good stuff we're working on as we're containing these dice, right? Well, at the end of each player's turn, when they're done with their 3 actions, then comes the bad stuff. That player's going to look at all the accessible dice on the Tesseract, meaning all the ones with at least 3 faces showing, and they're going to grab the die on the lowest level with the lowest value. So I've got this 1 right here that's on the 3rd tier up. I'm going to remove that from the Tesseract, and I'm going to roll it. This then gets added into my primed area. Now there's 2 bad things about removing things from the Tesseract and putting them in the primed area. The first is that, as you can see, I'm adding each of these primed dice into the corresponding column here. So these are my 4s, these are my 3s. And if we ever get to the point where we add a 3rd die into one of those columns, then we start breaching. I'm going to move my breach token up to the 1, and if our breach counter ever reaches 7, we lose the game. And the second bad thing is that as we're removing dice from the Tesseract, we'll eventually start revealing the bottom board underneath the Tesseract. Every time we reveal a space underneath one of these dice, it's going to show a symbol that will do additional bad effects to us. We get some really cool extra ways to interact with the Tesseract as well, though. One of them is that each of us will be playing as a different character. So each of these is a different type of scientist that can do really cool abilities to help us contain the Tesseract better, or fend off these primed dice in various ways, or just plain make us all better at our job. Second is that as we're containing these dice out here on this board, if we're able to fill rows and columns, we get special bonuses. So for each full row filled, so if I got 1 of each value of orange die onto this containment board, we get to add a die that had been destroyed earlier in the game back onto the Tesseract and buy ourselves a little bit more time. And if we complete a column, meaning if I'd gotten the 3 in each different color, for instance, then we get one of these superpowers, which do amazing things for us. They work kind of like the research cards, except that anybody at the table can activate them, and they're really powerful. And that's the basic framework of the game. We're trying to find ways to more efficiently and powerfully contain dice into good sets. One other thing I didn't mention is that you're allowed to transfer dice between different players' labs, so I can give my dice to other players to help them complete their sets. And it's a race against time. We lose if the Tesseract ever runs out of dice, or if the breach counter gets all the way to 7. But if we can manage to fill in every single spot on this containment board, every row and column filled to the brim, then we've contained the Tesseract successfully and we win.